Welcome to my channel. My name is Lisa Alastuey, and on this channel you will find a variety of inspirational and informational videos. If that sounds good to you and you haven't subscribed, please subscribe. My guest today is Lita Vallis. Hi, Lita.
Hey, Lisa.
So good to see you again.
You too.
Can you tell the audience a little bit about yourself and what you do?
Sure. Yeah, my name is Lita Vallis. I live in Austin, Texas, and I work in real estate, but really what we're here to talk about is more of my personal journey, which in my personal life, I've been married for 16 years, and I have a wonderful husband and a stepdaughter. And my journey that brought me to Lisa probably started about 6 years ago. It being in midlife, having been married for, over a decade, and just beginning to seek out, ways to keep marriage exciting, ways to keep myself and, my personal life growing and evolving. I started out on just a personal, spiritual journey, and that brought me to the workshop where I met Lisa, and we birthed this idea to come on and share more in the podcast.
Yes. So I met you pretty recently. I attended it was basically a women's retreat, a 3-day retreat that you were co-hosting with a very good friend of mine, meditation mother, Kim Goyette. And so maybe just share us a little bit of that backstory of that retreat and what y'all were offering for the women.
Sure. Yeah. So I met Kim, meditation mother. I met her over a decade ago at another women's group. I met her through a friend and we just clicked. So I went to her women's retreat. Yeah, about 10 years ago was my first one. And it's a beautiful container of women, a lot of women in the midlife phase of life, but really all ages. There's been, a variety from 19 to I think up to the 70s over the years. I go regularly to her retreats, and as she noticed me on my spiritual, really a sensual awakening journey, as I began to really tap into my own desires and passions, she also was at that phase in her life and her marriage where she was seeking more and seeking ways to add, excitement and flavor to life. After you've been raising kids and giving so much, many women are always giving to, husbands, to children, to family, to careers, to home life. And there comes a time when a lot of women start looking at, hey, what do I need? What are my desires? What do I want? So Kim and I met at a certain phase in our life where we were both going through a similar awakening around that. And so we birthed the Sensual Awakening Women's Retreat. And ultimately, our goal was and still is just to provide tools and resources for women who are at a similar place in their lives and seeking more. So that's ultimately what we did. The curriculum was basically the best tools that we have found in our journey, and the tools that we use to come alive in new ways, and then giving that away, sharing it and spreading it. So that's what the weekend was, and that's how it evolved.
Yes. It was a very powerful retreat. And like you said, it was women of all different ages, situationships. We had widowers, we had young women in their 20s, we had sexual abuse recovery victims, we had married, those on the brink of divorce, we had all different walks of life that came together and create this community. And it was very powerful. I have to tell you, I had shared this with Kim, is when going to a retreat like that, that's something you can't get at a doctor's office, you can't get in a college class, and you cannot get just, in everyday interactions. It sometimes takes a very special circumstance where that synergy can come together, where women can share and uplift each other. And I saw that magic happen at the retreat.
Yes. Yeah, it was magical. And I credit Kim for curating over the years. You know, she's been doing this about 10 years and has curated a real community and sense of trust and just honoring the women that come.
Mhm.
So I think that that's what we benefited from. And I do believe that there is an element of, you know, divine intervention that comes into play. You know, Kim and I both, you know, we pray over the marketing materials before we send them out. You know, we set an intention that the materials reach the perfect women at the perfect time, and they feel a yes. You know, that intention, I believe, does have an effect and calls in the perfect combination of people. What I loved about our retreat is that not only were Kim and I of service, but some women that showed up were also of really great service to one another, and they got to use their divine gifts on each other. You know, just it's in that sense of community where a lot of the magic and the real you know, the message or the perfect thing that you needed to hear, it might not come from me or Kim. You know,
Mhm.
maybe it comes from a different woman over dinner, or you take a walk together on one of the breaks and get exactly the message that you needed, that you came for. And that part I can't explain. You know, I do my part to pray over the marketing, and you know, when I'm writing marketing material, I you know, call in my, you know, my spiritual guides to lead me to say the right thing, and I trust that.
Mhm.
I've always been that way pretty much my whole life. So I think that's one of the unnameable elements that brings the success and the power to the retreat, and to really hopefully any group that we're a part of.
Yes, yes. I was really impressed with your education and your instruction. And I saw a lot of epiphanies and aha moments happening throughout the retreat, stuff that some people were like, yeah, I've always known that. And others were like, I've never heard of that, or I've never seen that, or I've never tried that, or just opening up to new ideas. And you guys really brought it. And I think, like I said, you can't get that in a regular, like structured college class or at the doctor's office or anything like that. It has to take place in those more intimate, vulnerable places where people feel safe and supported. And that was a really awesome retreat, because I
Hmm.
think, you know, as women age and they go down the path of life, you know, there's wake up calls that happen, and some of it is around relationships. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Sure. Yeah, I mean, I believe relationships are definitely our greatest teachers, you know, all the way back from our family relationships, our family of origin, and, you know, the friendships and the relationships that we have growing up into adulthood, into pair bonding, into friendships that we form later in life. I mean, that is, I believe, the juiciest place to learn and grow is in relationship to others. And yeah, basically relationships can be a mirror of your lessons and a mirror of areas where you need to grow. You know, if you're seeing something in another that's triggering you or upsetting you, most likely there's a mirror there that you need to look at yourself in and see where that person's trait or whatever's annoying you, you know, where do I have that, and how is that showing up in me, that this person is reflecting to me that I need to look at.
Yes,
That's
yes.
what I found. And yeah, and definitely marriage, you know, has been the biggest mirror and the biggest, you know, the biggest beautiful unfolding, the biggest challenge, the biggest lesson, the biggest teacher of my life for sure. You know, 17 years is the most time I've ever spent with one person. You know,
Mm-hmm.
living in the same house and sharing, you know, daily life and chores and tasks and um, you know, and celebration and fun. You know, sharing all that. And yeah, it's
Yeah.
been my biggest teacher for sure. I would guess a lot of people could say the same thing, you know, for
Mm-hmm.
better or for worse.
Yes, yes. And I noticed that, like, especially in midlife, people start to take more assessment and inventory of these relationships. And, you know, maybe they have to end some relationships because they're depleting them. or they have
Mm.
to, whether it is a marriage or it's a work relationship that is depleting you and you have to go in a new direction. And I definitely have seen many examples of that in middle age and amongst middle age friends and acquaintances, where there is more of a concern about time and energy and what are you giving it to, and just how short, life is.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. I turned 51 this year.
Yay.
Yeah, 50 fun.
Yes. I love it. 50 fabulous.
So, yeah, and I definitely noticed that I feel very reflective now. It's almost like the halftime show or something, It's like, okay, I made it to the halftime. If we live 100 years, let's say, it's like, okay, it's time to reassess.
Mm-hmm.
What do I want to bring in? What, like you said, what do you want to let go of? And I think that is true. The whole midlife crisis, it's a stereotype, but often stereotypes are there because they're true.
There's some truth in it.
Yeah, yeah. So I would say, yeah, it's a time of a midlife reflection, let's call it. I
Mm-hmm.
won't call it a crisis. But yeah, for many, if the choices you've made have gotten you to a place where you don't feel like you're thriving, that could be a crisis. And then there is a need to make changes and shifts. That seems completely reasonable. And,
Yes.
I've definitely been through that process, and sure
Yes.
my husband's thought it through himself. A lot of friends
Yeah.
have been thinking, is this a path we want to be on,
Mm-hmm.
which is why it's so important to always be growing, always be, looking for new ways to grow and evolve personally and bring that to your relationships.
Mm-hmm. And sometimes it takes a lot of courage to step out from what's safe and what's known, because some people will stay there. They'll stay in a safe, marriage because the unknown is too scary. And then others are like, okay, I can leave this big safe house and step into the unknown, knowing that it's better for me on the long run. So it's
Right.
definitely crossroads that are taking place for a lot of people, I think, in midlife.
Right. Well, yeah. And even you're talking about safety, reflecting and thinking about, what are my values? Is safety really my main value? Having a nice house and a comfortable life and a fancy car, like, is this really
Is it
what
worth it?
yeah, is it worth it? And what have I sacrificed for it?
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know if you can hear that. That's my husband works from home and he's
Oh,
walking.
no, we're fine.
Okay, good. Okay, good. Yeah, reflecting on values and considering, have I made the right choices and what do I need to shift? I know for us, like, travel is definitely on the horizon. We just got back from the trip of our lifetime, after reflecting and looking at our values. It's like, okay, what is really important?
Yeah.
And travel and adventure is super important. And that's how I want to be spending my time. So we planned and went on this amazing trip to Africa and spent a month traveling and going on safari. And, it was a little bit out of our comfort zone. We got stuck in the mud in the middle of the Serengeti, and there were like wild animals. It's like, but you also feel so alive. It's like, oh my gosh, I don't want to stay in my house and just have safety for the rest of my life. I want to go out and experience life and have new adventures and meet new people from different walks of life and different countries and cultures. So that's something that we've committed to every year. As long as we're able, every year, go on a major adventure of some sort, whether that be national parks of the USA or hiking a trail that we've never been on, all the way to, traveling around the world and doing something exotic if that's possible.
I love
But
that you
that's
said committing to an adventure, not a vacation, an
right.
adventure. Love that.
Yeah. Oh yeah. No, I'm super over the sit on the beach
I'm so
with the
boring.
margarita.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like, I'm so over that.
Yes, yes. So another area that I'd like to touch on with you about women and midlife is, coming to grips with the aging process. The body's changing, the face is changing, the hair is changing, and some women feeling that maybe their sensuality is on the decline as they get older.
Hmm.
Can you talk on that a little bit?
Oh yeah, definitely. Um, Yeah, I mean, you don't know this about me, but I went through a whole journey with plastic surgery, or I might have
Oh
shared
yeah,
about it
yeah, you did.
actually at the retreat. Yeah.
Hmm.
Yeah, so I'm very familiar with this journey. I was a late bloomer in the attractiveness category of life. I think I never really got attention or anything, probably until mid 20s, I would say, and then I got really into being hot. Basically, it became really important. Like I late bloomed, and then I like made up for lost time. For better or for worse, that became a big priority. So one of the places that led me to was getting breast implants I was in my mid 30s, and yeah, actually, I was getting close to 40, and I think that I had that conditioning, like, oh, I'm starting to not be in my quote unquote prime, which is a whole lie, a whole conversation we could talk about, just the cultural lie, the beauty myth about around aging. But anyway, so I got, these big fake boobs, and it was a whole journey. It lasted about 4 years. It was a health nightmare for me. So they're all gone. And having gone through that, I definitely am a huge advocate for, women just being with the natural aging process and embracing that wisdom is super sexy.
Hmm.
That maturity and what we have to offer the world with our experience and our minds and our gifting. Coming back from Africa, I will say there is a cultural reverence for elders
Hmm.
that I experienced there that I definitely don't see prevalent in our Western American society. And I think there's a big lesson there around just the reverence for the age and wisdom of the elders. The chiefs of the tribes are that's who you go to, right? Women and men are revered as elders for their wisdom, and that's something that we really can learn from and incorporate into our culture. And yeah, and the whole beauty myth is part of that. And if enough of us start thinking differently about it, we will change the culture.
Hmm.
The culture's geared towards youth and beauty because that sells a lot of products, that sells a lot of surgeries,
Hmm.
that sells a lot of these things that keep the myth alive. So yeah, if enough of us.
Yeah, absolutely. It's in the pocketbook. If women actually looked at their, budget every month and realized, do you want to spend $1,000 on Botox and fillers, or would you rather spend $1,000 on an adventure? Like, how do you
Yeah,
really want to spend that money, and what is at the end of the day going to value you the most? And
right.
so, yeah, we could make a huge cultural shift because the women have a lot of spending power now, and where they are spending that money and putting that on can make a huge difference. Start
Right.
buying the magazines with the older ladies, start supporting women owned businesses. There's lots of things that we can do to make that shift.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. And I read a quote recently that really impacted me around, when you're gone, what are you taking with you? You know, you're not taking, how many people thought you were attractive. You're not taking your wealth. You're not taking, the beauty or the material things. You're taking your character. You're taking the lessons that you've learned, how you've made the world a more beautiful place. The beauty really can be a reflection of the beautiful impact that you're having on the world. And our body is really just the vessel for that. Of course, we're going to make it the best that we can be. And,
Sure.
I,
Healthy, strong, those types of
oh,
things. Yeah.
yeah, absolutely. I showered and washed my hair to come talk to you today. It's important to present,
Exercise. Yeah.
yeah, be your best, healthiest, most powerful self,
Mhm.
and then use that to make a seriously beautiful impact on the world around you. And that's really the legacy that I'm interested in, and the legacy that I'm interested in supporting and encouraging in my friends and
Mhm.
anybody that I'm able to influence.
Yes, definitely, definitely. So you have an interesting background. Can you share a little bit about that? And I know there was a topic you wanted to like touch on. It's a
Mhm.
women's international topic. So can you
Right.
touch on that?
Yes. Yeah. Well, I have Middle Eastern heritage. So my dad is from Tehran, Iran, and he came here in the 60s to go to college and met my mom in college, and they got married, and he stayed. One of the impacts that that's had on me, especially right now, being aware of what's going on in Iran with the women's revolution, really, it has me reflecting on my presence and my ability to talk openly and freely about women's issues and women's empowerment. I think I have taken that for granted in the past, and now that's especially up for me, just looking at women who are struggling to even be able to voice all that's going on over there. And so yeah, what I wanted to bring up or bring to the forefront is just, as women in our culture, it's so important to use this voice and this freedom that we innately have. Hopefully, most of us in healthy environments and healthy situations are able to speak freely and share our passions and our purpose and our power. So taking advantage of that almost seems like an obligation to me now more than it ever has, because I'm hyper aware that it's not something to take for granted.
Mhm.
And also, coming off of this trip, being in Africa, which is my experience, it's a very patriarchal country, like most countries are. Different though, in that, really, the women there's so many different practices that we don't have to even think about, like I spent some time with the Maasai culture, and some of the tribal cultures there, they have a ritual, which, what we learn about is genital mutilation. That's something that we have heard about, many of us have heard about, but talking to those women, it's not considered that. It's considered a rite of passage to prepare you for marriage. And ultimately, looking at that through our lens,
Mhm.
that is so difficult to wrap our brain around, right? and and yeah, just different practices like that I learned about, different marital patterns and wealth patterns, women being able to own property and uh, have their own financial setup without the permission of a man in their life. There's still a pretty common bride price in the cultures where I was visiting. The bride price, the dowry, we would call it. All of that is still very alive, and
Child
yeah,
brides,
what's that?
child brides.
Um, I did, yeah, I think I don't know that they would call it child bride, but yeah, there was age discrepancies, but more like how many cows is the family going to get in exchange for the woman going to the male's family? Because
Yes.
from what I understand, that the female will go to the male's tribe or village to live, and so her parents get something in exchange for that.
Hmm.
Oftentimes, cows or goats
Hmm.
or animals or something like that. So,
Oh, but I
uh,
meant like, 14-year-olds marrying, 40-year-olds and like having child brides.
yeah, I didn't witness any of that.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, I think it is very. I mean, I know for sure that many of the tribes, the Maasai tribe for sure has multiple women with one male.
Hmm.
That's very normal.
Yep.
And yeah, I can't speak to the age differences or the age where that all kicks in.
Hmm.
I know that there's a big ritual around, menses and coming of age for a woman to be of childbearing years, and that the big focus is on her child rearing ability, to the point where her name often becomes mother of, then the name of a child.
Oh,
So
wow.
yeah. So like, do you have children, Lisa?
No.
No. Okay. I don't have any of my own either, but like, let's say if I was going to claim my stepdaughter, just for the sake of this example,
Yes.
my name would no longer be Lita. It would be mother of Danielle.
Mm.
And that's, my identity. And that's,
They don't
which
do
is
the
very,
father of Daniel? No.
no, not the same, not the same. Yeah. And so it was just a lot to think about. And, I'm not going to project, our Western culture is better or anything like that. It was just interesting to notice
Hmm.
the differences and
Yeah.
notice how, yeah, I would call it patriarchal culture is influencing every aspect of life. And, and it is in ours as well. But the fact that we can talk openly about these things and look at ways to make, our shifts important. Is there changes that we should be making that would be more empowering for everybody? We're able to have those conversations is something that I don't take for granted at all.
Mhm. Yes, yes. Well, thank you for sharing that. I mean, I think a lot of people are aware of the genital mutilation. We have learned about it in a textbook, but it's another thing when you meet somebody who actually experienced it and how they process and think about it, and how the cultural differences might be at play. I think that we need to raise more awareness around that topic. I think even like the World Health Organization, they denounce it. They don't want them practicing genital mutilation because it is a form of like abuse on the body and the person. But again, you're going back to like powerful systems, traditions that have been in place for hundreds and thousands of years.
Right, right. But yeah, I think the health implications are worth bringing up. And what I learned about that is that the reason for it, it's not just to torture a woman, it's actually to take away any desire so that she won't be tempted
Right.
to be with any other man when her husband is out, hunting or, elsewhere, that she won't have to struggle with temptation.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
So, it's just fascinating the lens that you can look at it through. Yeah, but yeah, it's definitely can cause a lot of health issues and
Yes.
yeah, with childbirth and everything. So
Yes, and you're taking away, one of life's pleasures, taking that
right.
away from somebody, that they'll never get to experience, and that's a travesty.
That it definitely breaks my heart, especially being on this journey, that we met on, where I'm so committed that women are stepping into their power and their pleasure, and that women are getting really clear on what their desires are and their passion and pleasure, and being able to communicate that to the people that they're in partnership with. Because we have been conditioned to focus on other people's needs. That includes in the bedroom. Historically, sex is like, okay, how do we bring the man to pleasure, and then sex is over once that that happens. It's like, wait a minute, there's so much else available. Let's bring those conversations, and we are, you can see huge shifts going on in that, and I definitely want to add to that momentum and get women in their bodies, getting clear on their desires and their passions. And that starts with knowing yourself and knowing your own body and what you want. It also carries over into other areas of your life. If you're getting clear about your desire, you're learning to speak, to use your own voice, to speak powerfully, voice your desires and what you want and have them be heard. That's going to show up in all areas of your life too, not just in the bedroom, but also just feeling more powerful and empowered to speak your truth in other ways as well. And we're definitely on that mission. I'm holding my torch for that mission.
Yes, yes. That's one of the things that I enjoyed about the retreat, you talking about like the erotic blueprints, and that how we might have been conditioned one way in our culture about sexuality, sensuality, when in reality, there's lots of different blueprints that we could turn to. Would you mind touching a little bit on that?
Absolutely. Yeah, that's been one of my most valuable tools in my own journey. So the Erotic Blueprints, Jaya Ma. Many people have heard about it now. It's reaching the mainstream. Gwyneth Paltrow did a Netflix show on it, and Jaya Ma was interviewed, and she got to share her work. So our culture has been conditioned a lot. Unfortunately, porn culture, what people are watching in porn, sadly, is a lot of our sexual education. And it's definitely not focused on women's pleasure and passion. So undoing some of that, I think, is a really valuable piece of the Erotic Blueprints. So the 5 erotic blueprints that Jaya has discovered. So sexual blueprint is the one that a lot of porn might focus on, which is focusing on just getting down to, nakedness, genital contact, dirty talk, lots of fun stuff, some of the other blueprints, there is the energetic blueprint, people that more tap into energy, that, maybe need more time to really connect with someone. And it's not always verbal. It's more of an energetic exchange. Like when you connect with someone, you just feel good around them, tapping into their energy. That's light dusting on that one. The sensual blueprint, people that need to have all 5 senses stimulated. So the sense of smell, maybe you need a little, aromatherapy going on, or music for a sense of hearing in the background, or silky sheets for your sense of touch, all senses. Maybe have some chocolate, throw some taste in there, some flavors, all 5 senses engaging. Some people really value that. And if all the factors are not in play, they might not be a turn on for them. If like the bed's uncomfortable and there's no music, or the sheets are scratchy, there's a little BO going on. It's like, no. There's the kinky blueprint. So people who are into all sorts of, very creative. It's a very creative blueprint. You can deep dive down the different kinky areas that people get turned on by. And then the 5th one is the shapeshifter. So it's a person who really gets off on figuring out what the other person likes and matching it. And then, each blueprint has a shadow, something that maybe you have to watch out for. For example, the shapeshifter can really love pleasing other people, but the shadow is maybe they're not getting their truest needs met because they're so focused on others. That's one example. And there's a whole deep dive. I highly recommend that body of work, and you can find that. I think it's missjaya.com. It's a great resource. And that was a game changer for us, because a lot of times you have a partner who is not your blueprint. And so you're trying to communicate. It's like communicating in 2 different languages. It's like, I'm speaking Spanish, you're speaking French, there's some overlap there. We can sound some stuff out. Yeah. But it'd be nice to learn each other's language and really gain some fluency in, your partner's language as well as your own, and also be able to teach them what you like. And if you don't have the words or the awareness, how do you teach someone what you like if you don't have the words and the ability to describe it yourself? It's pretty challenging to communicate that. So so that's definitely my top toolkit item.
Yes. Another thing that I really liked from the retreat is that you did share some communication tools, like on how to bring up these subjects with your partner that's not, going to make them feel defensive, or they're not doing it right, or like, putting them down. And so I really appreciated how you approach that, in a delicate, but in a, powerful way, because you're asking for what you need or what you want.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. And that is always a tricky topic, because you don't want to criticize someone, you want to be celebrating your connection, not criticizing it. And sometimes, you would enjoy it more, even more. That's a word that I think we probably talked about in the weekend. It's like, I would enjoy that even more if you slowed it down to half the speed. I would enjoy it twice as much. Yes. Finding ways to basically compliment and encourage, avoiding criticism language, but really encouraging things that you do enjoy and then tweaking or slowing or speeding it up or altering it in a way that would make it even more pleasurable. Because ultimately, we're here to bring each other pleasure. That's, any good lover or, good partner, they're going to want that, so it's just a matter of languaging it in a way that is adding to rather than, stopping them in their tracks.
Yes.
And yeah, it's tricky, and it's definitely an ongoing learning process, but I'm always looking for the best tools around communication, especially in the bedroom, and how to do that. The sandwich, the compliment sandwich, where you start with something positive, then you make the request in the middle, and then add a compliment at the end, and you can do that in real time, like, ooh, I really like how you're, running your fingers through my hair. If you slowed it down, it would be even more pleasurable. Oh yeah, just like that. I love that. That feels so good. So it's the sandwich, right?
Yes, yes. That's a
And
great
it's fun.
tool.
It's fun to play with.
So another cool tool, especially for women that are trying to regain their sensuality in midlife, is maybe look at some of the tantric practices. I know you've been studying that. Can you talk a little bit on that?
Sure. Yeah. So Tantra has been, yes, yeah. Tantra has been a big part of my journey the past about 6 years. I really kind of deep dove into it during COVID when we were all in isolation. I had just gone to Austin Tantra Festival, happened in December of 2019. I went to that event. I had this huge awakening, like, these are the tools that I have been seeking, and it's not just around touch and sexuality. There's 5 pillars of Tantra, which include movement practices, sound, chanting, breath work, breathing practices, mindfulness, meditation, as well as the physical touch and sensuality piece. So all 5 of those pillars, and if you talk to 100 people who study Tantra, you'll get 100 different definitions of what it is. So mine is, the weaving together of those 5 pillars for a more fulfilling life. That's what it's meant to me. And yeah, that is definitely the best offering I can give to any woman who is either beginning or deepening her spiritual and sensual journey, is to, every major city that I have ever been to has some sort of community around Tantra. Yes. And books, it is getting more and more, I guess, popular. So it's becoming more mainstream, more talked about, just like all these other topics are. Thank goodness that these things are very normal now to find and get access to and find resources in. So yeah, that has definitely been my most fulfilling path and my deepest recommendation for any woman, any person who is interested in deepening their spiritual practice, their relationship to their body and their sensuality.
Yes, most definitely. So we're getting here toward the end, and we've touched on quite a bit of different topics here, but the main theme being on helping women with their, sensuality in midlife. And would you like to share any final thoughts?
Yeah, say yes to yourself. Yeah, it's time. I don't know if astrology is something that you ever talked about in your podcast.
No.
Okay, so it's an interest that I have, and I've been learning more about it. So if you ever find, I'm not going to claim to be any sort of expert in it, but what I know and what I am getting value from right now is knowing that we are moving into a time astrologically when the rising of the feminine energy will become more and more prevalent and powerful. You often hear about the age of Aquarius. We've been hearing about it. There was that song in the 60s and it's, been strengthening and gaining momentum. So we are at a time where it's going to continue gaining strength and momentum. And the Piscean age is is wrapping up, and the age of Aquarius is gaining even more momentum. So because of that, I do believe that more and more women and feminine energies, which can reside in all kinds of bodies, right? But people are going to be more in touch with their feminine energies and their feminine power, and that is going to continue rising up to the surface, which is why we're seeing so many shifts in our culture and normalizing of these topics, because it's already happening. So as it continues and builds momentum, my deepest offering is to listen to that call. If you have an intuitive knowing, a sense of purpose, something that's rising within you, listen to that and say yes, because it's needed, it's valued, and it is time.
Amen. You gave me chills. That was good, Lita. Awesome. Awesome. Well, thank you, Lita. I appreciate you coming on my channel today and sharing all of your information. I will be sure to link your future retreat down in the description box so people maybe can do that. And I'll also link your Instagram if that's okay, so they can
Sure.
reach out to you that way. And
Yeah.
and also, if you guys like this video, give it a comment down below, give it a thumbs up. Don't forget to subscribe and hit the bell to be alerted to when the next video drops. Thanks for watching.